whining and shouting and screaming, feigning illness, feigning injury so he didn't have to sit there. And Axel Rudakubana, it cannot be overstated, my goodness me.
To address the absolutely horrific nature of what he did on that day.
What if I told you that the Southport attack wasn't just a random act of violence, but a ticking time bomb that authorities failed to defuse? In this video, we're diving deep into the shocking details of Axel Rudakubana's history with law enforcement and the critical mistakes that led to 3 young girls losing their lives. Prepare for some uncomfortable truths about our justice system. As the doors of Liverpool Crown Court swung open, the air was thick with tension. Families of the Southport victims filed in, their faces etched with a mix of grief and determination. They came seeking justice. But what unfolded next was nothing short of a courtroom circus. Axel Rudakubana, the man responsible for the Southport tragedy, had one last trick up his sleeve. As the proceedings began, he launched into a series of unexpected outbursts, each more disruptive than the last. It was as if he was determined to make a mockery of the very system meant to hold him accountable. But Rudakubana's antics didn't stop there. In a move that left many observers shaking their heads in disbelief, he began to feign illness and injury.
That Axel Rudakubana is not. We've seen the cowardice from Axel Rudakubana today.
A victim impact statement read out on behalf of Leanne Lucas.
It was a pathetic attempt to avoid facing the music, particularly when it came time for the victim impact statements. The contrast couldn't have been starker. While Rudakubana writhed and moaned, the relatives of those he had harmed sat with quiet dignity. One moment in particular stood out. The father of an injured girl, his voice steady and clear, looked directly at Rudakubana and declared, "Our daughter is strong. Our daughter is brave. Our daughter is everything that Axel Rudakubana is not."
Whining and shouting and screaming, feigning illness, feigning injury so he didn't have to sit there.
The harm, the hurt, the trauma he caused, not just to the families, but to the wider community.
It was a powerful statement that cut through the chaos, reminding everyone of the true strength on display in that courtroom. But what do these courtroom antics really tell us about the mind of a killer? Experts in criminal psychology suggest that Rudakubana's behavior is far from random. Instead, it's part of a calculated pattern of manipulation and attention-seeking. By creating a spectacle, he's attempting to divert attention from the severity of his crimes and avoid confronting the consequences of his actions. The emotional toll of Rudakubana's behavior was palpable. Even seasoned professionals found themselves struggling to maintain composure. News presenter Mark White, known for his steady demeanor, broke down while recounting the victim impact statements. To hear her, an adult, trying to come to terms with the enormity of what happened on that day, and to be so full of guilt themselves because they survived and young children died. "It's awful," he said, his voice thick with emotion. Rudakubana's courtroom performance isn't unique, unfortunately. It's a tactic we've seen before, employed by defendants who seek to disrupt proceedings and inflict further pain on those they've already harmed. For families desperately seeking closure, these disruptions can reopen wounds and exacerbate the trauma they're already grappling with. As we peel back the layers of this tragedy, a disturbing pattern emerges.
And hear the impact of what he did. I mean, the contrast between that father of that brave girl.
You're so right. It's sickening, actually, the display of selfishness.
Axel Rudakubana didn't just appear out of thin air to wreak havoc on Southport. No, he left a trail of red flags so glaring that it's hard to believe they were missed. But missed they were. time and time again. Let's be clear. Rudakubana wasn't some unknown entity lurking in the shadows. He was on law enforcement's radar, his concerning behavior a blinking warning sign that somehow failed to trigger the necessary alarms. It's like watching a slow-motion car crash, knowing the impact is coming but feeling powerless to stop it. So, how many chances did authorities have to intervene? The answer is infuriating. Multiple opportunities slipped through their fingers like sand, each one a potential turning point that could have altered the course of events. It's a sobering reminder of the systemic weaknesses that plague our law enforcement agencies. But here's where it gets even more maddening.
And Axel Rudakubana, it cannot be overstated. My goodness me.
To address the absolutely horrific nature of what he did on that day.
Rudakubana wasn't just charged with a single count of murder. No, we're talking about 3 counts of murder and 10 counts of attempted murder. This wasn't a momentary lapse in judgment. It was a horrifying escalation of violent behavior that somehow went unchecked. Now, you might be wondering how someone with such a concerning history could slip through the cracks. The answer lies in a perfect storm of institutional failures. Information sharing between agencies, practically non-existent. Risk assessment procedures, riddled with potential biases. It's a system held together with duct tape and good intentions, and Rudakubana exposed every weakness. Experts in law enforcement have been sounding the alarm on these systemic issues for years. They've stressed the importance of early intervention, pointing out how crucial it is in preventing tragedies like this one. But their warnings have fallen on deaf ears, drowned out by bureaucratic noise and political posturing. Here's the kicker. Rudakubana's behavior prior to the attack wasn't just concerning. It was a neon sign flashing danger in capital letters. His obsession with violence was escalating, a ticking time bomb that authorities failed to defuse. It's enough to make your blood boil, knowing that all the pieces were there, just waiting for someone to put them together. The Southport tragedy has laid bare the gaping wounds in our approach to public safety, leaving Keir Starmer and other political leaders scrambling for answers. As the dust settles on this horrific event, the pressure is mounting for meaningful reform. But will this be the wake-up call that finally jolts our system into action? Starmer, once seen as a beacon of hope for criminal justice reform, now finds himself in the hot seat. Critics are circling, demanding explanations for the systemic failures that allowed this tragedy to unfold. The Labour leader's handling of violent crime has come under intense scrutiny, with questions swirling about his ability to deliver on promises of a safer society. But let's not kid ourselves. This isn't just about Starmer. The Southport case has exposed a rot that runs deep through our institutions. Interagency cooperation, or the lack thereof, has been thrust into the spotlight. How many more red flags need to be missed before we realize our system is fundamentally broken? The victims and their families deserve more than political posturing and empty platitudes. They need action, not words. As the nation watches, the question remains: will our leaders rise to the challenge, or will Southport become just another footnote in a long history of missed opportunities?